She used to think love was loud, not dramatic, just noticeable. A voice calling her name from the other room. A question asked twice, just to be sure. A hand on her back when she washed dishes. Proof that she existed in someone else's mind. When she met him, none of that seemed urgent. He was calm, reserved. He listened more than he spoke. In the beginning, that felt like depth, like safety. She told herself this was what mature love looked like. Quiet, steady, undemanding. She learned his routines quickly. The way he liked his coffee. The hours when he didn't want to talk. The subtle shift in his face that meant he was tired of a conversation but didn't want to say it out loud. She adjusted without thinking. It felt natural to make room. At first, she didn't notice how often she was the one reaching. She was the one who asked how his day went. The one who remembered his deadlines, his mother's birthday, the story he once told about a childhood disappointment. When she spoke about herself, he listened politely, but his attention drifted. His eyes moved to his phone. His answers came late and short, like echoes that had traveled too far. "It's nothing," she told herself. "He's just different." That phrase became a soft blanket she wrapped around small hurts. It kept her warm enough to stay. Over time, the silences grew heavier. Not angry silences, empty ones. The kind that sit between two people like an unwatered plant, slowly drying out, leaf by leaf. She would speak into the quiet and feel her words fall flat, like they had nowhere to land. She began editing herself. Not consciously at first. Just small things. She stopped telling long stories. She paused before sharing excitement. She learned which parts of her life interested him and which didn't, and she offered only the approved sections. The rest stayed folded inside her, untouched. When she was upset, she learned to smooth it over quickly. He didn't like emotional conversations. He would say he was tired, or that he didn't see the point in talking things to death. Sometimes he would look genuinely confused, as if her feelings were written in a language he had never learned. So she translated herself into something simpler, less demanding, easier to hold. She became very good at not asking for much. From the outside, the relationship looked fine. No yelling, no cruelty, no obvious wounds. Friends said she was lucky. He was stable, reliable. "At least he doesn't hurt you," someone once said, meaning well. She nodded, even though something in her chest tightened at the word hurt. She didn't know how to explain that absence could bruise too, that being unseen could slowly hollow a person out. She started feeling tired in a way sleep didn't fix. It was the kind of tired that comes from always being slightly alert, always checking the temperature of the room, always wondering if now was the right moment to speak. She would lie in bed next to him, staring at the ceiling, feeling strangely alone despite the warmth of another body nearby. Sometimes she imagined herself as a child standing in front of a closed door, waiting for it to open. She didn't knock anymore. She just waited, quiet, hoping the door might notice her on its own. Her self-worth didn't disappear all at once. It thinned. It thinned every time she felt silly for wanting reassurance. Every time she swallowed a thought because it felt inconvenient. Every time she told herself she was too sensitive, she stopped trusting her own reactions. If something hurt, she assumed the problem was her. She became smaller, not in body, but in presence. One evening, she caught her reflection in the bathroom mirror. The light was soft, forgiving. Still, she barely recognized the woman looking back. Her face seemed muted, like a photograph left too long in the sun. There was nothing wrong with it, nothing dramatic, just a quiet absence of spark. She realized she hadn't asked herself how she was doing in a long time. That question landed gently but firmly. How am I doing? At first, there was no answer. Just a blank space where a feeling should have been. That scared her more than pain would have. Pain at least meant something was alive. The shift didn't happen in a single moment. There was no fight, no confession, no door slammed shut. It began with noticing. Noticing how she felt when she left the house alone, lighter, more present. Noticing how her thoughts flowed freely when no one was waiting for her to finish quickly. Noticing how her body relaxed when she didn't have to measure her emotions. She started taking longer walks, sitting with a notebook without an agenda, letting memories surface, versions of herself that laughed louder, dreamed bigger, spoke without rehearsing. She remembered that she used to feel interesting. This remembering was quiet, but it was powerful. It wasn't angry. It wasn't resentful. It was simply honest. She tried once more to speak to him, not dramatically, just clearly. She talked about feeling lonely, about missing connection, about wanting to be met emotionally, not just physically present. He listened. He nodded. He said he didn't realize she felt that way. He said he would try. For a while, she waited again. But this time, she was watching herself while she waited. She noticed how hope rose and fell with his attention, how her mood bent around his effort, or lack of it, and slowly, something in her refused to keep bending. She understood then that neglect doesn't always come from malice. Sometimes it comes from inability, from emotional limits that have nothing to do with love, but everything to do with capacity. Knowing that didn't make it hurt less, but it made it clearer. Clarity gave her back a piece of herself. She began choosing herself in small, quiet ways, saying what she felt without softening it too much, taking up space in conversations, letting pauses exist without rushing to fill them. When she felt dismissed, she didn't argue or explain. She simply noticed. The noticing changed her. She no longer chased warmth where there was only coolness. She stopped proving her worth through patience. She let discomfort be a signal instead of a challenge. When the relationship ended, it was almost gentle, sad, but clean. Like setting down something heavy you hadn't realized you were carrying for years. Afterward, there was grief, but also relief. Space, silence that belonged to her. She spent time alone, not to fix herself, but to listen. She learned the sound of her own needs, the weight of her own intuition. She learned that self-worth is not loud either. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't beg. It stands quietly and says, I matter, even here, even now. One morning, months later, she noticed how she breathed more fully, how her thoughts felt less guarded. She caught her reflection again, this time in a cafe window, and saw something familiar in her eyes. Not excitement, not happiness, presence. She hadn't become someone new. She had returned to herself. And that, she realized, was not the end of a story, but a soft beginning. One where she no longer disappeared to keep someone else comfortable, and where her own voice finally had room to stay.